Hello, hello! The next expansion for Retail WoW is on the horizon, and to kick things off, there is currently live a pre-patch event called the Midnight Twilight Ascension that will run from January 27th to March 2nd of 2026. This event includes all sorts of rewards from catch-up gear, mounts, pets, decor, and more. In this video, I'd like to go over my personal experience and observations, having played this event for a few weeks now. For a bit of background, I don't tend to play Retail WoW as often as I do Classic, out of pure personal preference. In recent years, I've struggled to keep up with the amount of abilities, as I couldn't always picture a use case for a lot of spells. I found it very overwhelming at times, like I was juggling way too many abilities that completely clogged up every single one of my action bars. What was particularly challenging before was logging back into my Retail WoW characters and having to relearn everything, as I'd have to go through and reread at least 3 action bars worth of spells just to figure out what my character was capable of. Recently, they've gone through and reconsolidated each class to be much more straightforward, with remarkably less bloat in the amount of abilities. I'm sure there are valid critiques from players who are much better at the game than me, that can miss certain abilities they may have lost, but I'll just go ahead and say, for me, it's been wonderful. I feel as if I have a much better clarity for each of my character's abilities, so much so that I can rotate between them with ease. For example, I had been given a free boost a few expansions ago. Not that I'd ever willingly buy one anyhow, but I chose to elevate my Disc Priest to level 70, current to the time. When I did that, I was immediately hit with a wall of abilities that were not only completely foreign to me, but that I also hadn't naturally grown to understand what this character was capable of alongside leveling. So when I struggled to play him, I just decided not to. I avoided playing him because it was just so overwhelming. So with this current event offering a kind of ease of access to catch up leveling and gear, in the back of my mind, I thought about trying this character out again, and I was actually so delighted to go through and purge every single one of his action bars because of this update. This character had become so much easier to understand with way less abilities. I actually wanted to play him again, and in my personal opinion, I actually find the current class updates to be quite helpful. So with that, please allow me to introduce you to my current warband. Because of this update, I've been able to finally finish leveling all 4 members, starting with my main, Madame, my Worgen Shadow Priest, Nioki, my Human Frost Mage, Ellie, my Blood Elf Blood DK, and Arlen, the aforementioned boosted Disc Priest. Throughout the rest of this video, you may see footage of any one of these characters as I continue to level them up. Alright, without further ado, let's get into the Twilight Ascension pre-patch event. To start off with this questline, at least on the Alliance side of things, you are prompted by Magister Umbric to investigate carefully some suspicious activity in Stormwind that may tie to the Twilight Hammer cult, now known as the Twilight's Blade cult. Eventually, you make your way to the Twilight Highlands zone, wherein the rest of these world quests and world bosses will spawn daily throughout the week. There are up to 19 world bosses that may spawn at any given time, and successfully defeating all of them rewards you with an achievement called 2 Minutes to Midnight. Each world boss could be grouped into 2 categories, the kind that have a ritual phase, wherein you are tasked with stopping the ritual first, slaying the ritualists second, and finally the world boss last. The other is basically exclusive to Voice of the Eclipse, wherein this guy has a timer and simply spawns in at the end of that timer. No ritual involved. Arguably, he's one of my favorite world bosses just for how simple it is to have a timer that instantly spawns the guy as straightforward as possible. So often, you're quietly balancing an order of operations and knowing that this one tends to take a while to spawn in, so you might as well check in on the ritual phases first before stopping by Voice of the Eclipse. Starting with pros, I think this event is a wonderful way to catch up any alts you may have, as it is quite easy to level very quickly while also gaining useful gear, and oddly enough these random potions that your character automatically drinks. Each world boss spawns frequently enough to where you tend to always have one to focus on. If not, there are a few world quests to do at a time, and each one is relatively simple. I've had a lot of fun with this event, working alongside members of the Horde, swooping in and saving players from certain groups of elite mobs, and helping to pull every ritualist together so that everyone can spam and essentially speedrun that phase into getting the world boss to spawn in much quicker. Overall, I've been enjoying this event very much, as it's helped me to level my warband consistently. However, there are a few cons I've noticed while playing. These world bosses function with an internal timer that dictates when they spawn in and how long they stay present. For the most part, there are plenty of players at any given time that can successfully defeat whomever the current world boss in rotation is. But on occasion, whether everyone is too spread out or too many players are on the sidelines, there are instances in which that world boss cannot be killed in time. So what happens then? Well, they just disappear straight into thin air right in front of you. The first time this happened to me, I hadn't even realized that's what happened, as I continued searching for where the boss must have dropped its loot, because we were so close to finishing that fight anyway. With how crowded it gets at times, sometimes it's just hard to see exactly where the boss is and what happened to them. So when it up and disappeared, I was confused. And then it dawned on me. The thing just despawned right before the end. In my personal opinion, that just shouldn't happen, or at least should come with some form of extension for that final phase. And the reason I say that is in full acknowledgement of the needs for rotation. I'm not saying you should be able to hold the world boss hostage and prevent the next phases from occurring. I'm saying that it just feels really bad to have the world boss despawn right in front of you, especially when you've been fighting throughout every previous phase with whomever else decided to show up, just to get to the end for it to vanish, without so much of an acknowledgement of what just happened. A slight extension would at least give another minute or so to finish up. It's not as if players aren't eager to finish the fight. I'd even accept the possibility of having the Ritualist's phase despawn if not completed in time, without any kind of extension. But the world bosses themselves? It just feels like such a bad oversight, and what was really interesting about it was that the next day I had noticed a change, as they had added a timer in which you can see for yourself how much time you have left to stop these rituals. Yeah, see, just like that. Perfect. Perfect. Okay, we gotta play this real... Oh no, we're totally not gonna make it. There's no way. Ah, 30 seconds. It's just gonna disappear. Look. I swear to you. No kind of extension. Nothing. Like, look at how hard we worked on that. Okay, they're still here. Okay, they're still here. Look, if they really changed it from yesterday, I would be so happy to be wrong. What is the timer for? Why isn't it just sitting at 0? That's so weird. Oh! So lame. So lame. I agree. In theory, I think this is a really interesting solution that does provide a bit of clarity into how much time remains per rotation. However, it doesn't actually solve the problem of having the world boss awkwardly despawn right in front of you, because when the timer reaches 0, the fight continues for about another minute or so, and then it suddenly vanishes. It's oddly confusing for no reason. If you're going to include a timer, it should at bare minimum be accurate, and the fact that it's not is just silly. I've even seen personal accounts from players discussing this openly in the world chat, wherein one person swore on multiple occasions the world boss despawned on them with time remaining, as it hadn't even hit 0 yet. On one hand, I kind of like the timer, but I actually think overall it's unnecessary. I appreciate the thought process on why that was included, but I actually think there could exist a much simpler solution to this problem that doesn't expose how weird the timer functions. Because the more I kind of sat on it and thought about it, I wanted to understand why I was so unhappy with the world boss despawning like this. I'm not ignorant to how these games have to function, and especially not towards how these world events have to function, but then it hit me. What I dislike is the lack of acknowledgement of these phases having a fail condition. I'd like to draw a comparison between another event, Hollow's End. In that event, when the Headless Horseman is flying about taunting players, he does actually acknowledge when you fail to put the fires out in a way that doesn't reveal how his timer functions. It doesn't feel as if he's a video game boss that despawns after a certain amount of times. It feels like you failed to stop him.
The town still burns. A cleansing fire! Time is short! I'll soon retire! Fire consumes! You've tried and failed! Let there be no doubt! Justice prevailed!
When the world bosses here just vanish into thin air, it breaks immersion. If Xalatath taunted players with something like, "Valiant attempt, but our work here is done," or something like that, I feel as if it would help so much more in a way that doesn't immediately make it feel as if the game isn't working as intended. That way, at least, you wouldn't even have to reveal how inaccurately weird that timer is. To be honest, I'd love to hear your feedback on this, because I've been carefully considering it now for the past couple of days, purely because it's been driving me nuts, so let me know what you think. Besides all of that, generally, I've had a good time. The only other thing worth mentioning, in my opinion, is how strange the gear squishing has become. To be honest, earning gear that is virtually the same exact thing, despite being only a single stat above what I had before, is also kind of lame. It feels less like you have a chance to get something really cool, and more like you're just receiving the same piece of loot over and over and over again, until you hit 80, in which you can just buy the rest of the gear that you'd need to officially catch up to the current item level. Sometimes you end up collecting the same gear over and over again that you can't even use. In those cases, I just stash it in my warband bank or sell it through one of the vendors nearby. The rewards otherwise are fine, pretty standard actually for what I've come to expect from any world event. There are mounts, one that you can earn from the 2 minutes to midnight achievement, and one that you can find for purchase via the Twilight's Blade Insignia Tender. That's the currency you earn in order to purchase gear and other items such as pets and decor. Overall, I'd rate the Midnight Twilight Ascension pre-patch event as a B+ for ease of access, straightforward mechanics, and for the rewards, which the only thing I'm really picky about being the awkward despawns and faulty timer. Regardless, I'd urge you to try it out for yourself, or if you're not interested in retail, then I'm sure you are already enjoying the Burning Crusade Classic Anniversary update. Thank you so much for tuning in, and have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye bye!